Do you want to do that part? Well, you have to do that part, so I'll just...
Why do I have to do that part?
Because you have to hold it up.
Yeah, I'll hold it up while you talk.
Oh, okay. 13? 13. Lucky 13. Claps are wimpy.
I guess.
Hello and welcome to episode 13 of the Slightly Serious Sign podcast. This one is voted number one by Dallas Fowler and Dallas Fowler, the one that you guys all seem to know. If you don't have his wonderful rap tunes, rap fam, shout out to rap fam, rap tunes coloring book, reach out. We'll try and get you one, but they're pretty sweet. And then the other Dallas Fowler who works for a pretty awesome, the number one sign distributor in the world and has a pretty awesome boss is what I'm being told. That part is questionable, but the first part I think is pretty valid. So, yeah, thanks guys. We appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for voting us number one.
So after we just did the ISA podcast, this would have been 3 podcasts ago now. Obviously, every time one of these shows come around, there's a lot of new equipment that comes out. And I think a lot of sign shops have to sit there and think, okay, what is worth buying? How do I know what's going to be worth buying? There's a lot of new stuff, especially stuff they've never heard of before. And they're having to decide, hey, is this something we should try and bring on for our shop? And our goal here is to talk about, okay, how do you decide what to bring on, or how can we help you decide what to bring on to your show? So we'll talk about that. A few things I wanted to get out up front. A lot of people have been asking, when will Domingo be back on? As soon as he gets back to the office, he can come on the podcast. It just hasn't worked out scheduling wise. It's not like we're trying to keep him off the podcast. This is the first time he's going to hear it because I just kept telling people we didn't want him on anymore. But it just hasn't worked out scheduling wise. It doesn't have anything to do with Domingo. So a lot of you have been asking for him to come on. So we'll have him on. And yeah, I don't think we have any, we haven't been fact checked in a few weeks. So actually we're pretty much good. It's kind of impressive that we haven't messed up yet. Yeah,
it's actually pretty nice. We haven't even, maybe we haven't said anything too bad, but yeah, nobody's fact checked us. Nobody's sent stuff our way saying, don't say this, don't say that. But we'll get back to that line at some point.
Yeah, probably. I mean, it can only go for so long before we mess something up again. So,
yep.
But yeah, thanks guys. A lot of people have been reaching out lately, telling us they like the podcast. So I just wanted to say again, thanks. We appreciate it, guys. I know, you have a lot of, other things you could be watching or listening to. So for you, those of you that have reached out and said, hey, we love the podcast. We appreciate it.
Yeah. When we first started this, it seemed relatively simple. The first ones now it's getting to be like, wait a minute. We have to sit down and figure out our schedule. When we doing this one, when we doing that one, like, okay, well, I'm going to be around here. You're going to be around there. So it gets a little bit difficult from time to time to like get one completely scheduled. But I think so far we're keeping up. We may have a pretty good schedule through the summer. So when you see us recording, when you see us in the same clothes, like back-to-back episodes, yes, we record them back-to-back.
Yeah.
So the same with IT supplies. When we did one with the last 2 of them, we were in the same clothes. Yes, because we literally recorded them back-to-back. So
yeah, I think what people might not realize is how infrequently both of us are actually in the office. So it's pretty difficult to get all these recorded and get it scheduled out right. So our schedules are a little hectic, but so far, I mean, this is episode 13. So assuming nothing catastrophic happens, at least we'll have 13 in a row that we haven't messed up.
Yeah. Rarely am I actually in this office. Like it's like less than 3 times a month usually that I'm actually in this office. So that's our time frame. And then gotta hope Tyler's in on those days that I'm in. So, it's been difficult, but we're there.
Yeah. We have a lot of guests coming up. So like I said, look out for those. I think we have, 4 or 5 maybe scheduled out through July-ish. So you'll see a lot of people that maybe some people you don't know, a lot of our vendors. The thing I did want to say is if you're a customer listening to this and you want to be on the podcast, we'd love to have some customers on. So if you're listening, reach out. If the ones that are listening probably already know us, so reach out via LinkedIn or text or call us or whatever. We'd love to have you on. So we got some space to fill. So we'd love to get a customer's perspective in on the podcast. So.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
All right, so we'll jump in now after that really long intro. Hopefully it wasn't too bad for you guys, but how do you decide what to buy? So the first question I wanted to ask you, why does the distributor you're choosing matter when you're trying to decide what to buy?
The distributor matters because you want to buy something from somebody that you have a relationship with. You don't want to buy something that you don't have a relationship with because if something goes wrong, or even that, can you trust that distributor? Because, a sales rep, and everybody, I think people that are listening will find out too, I hate sales reps. I hate them. Even I hate the ones that work for us, because a lot of them, and I preach to our guys, don't do this. They'll sell you something to sell you something. And a distributor shouldn't sell you something just to sell you something. He shouldn't sell you something that you don't want. And so a distributor matters. And it also, there's a lot of reasons it matters too. Like, is there service? There's a long list of things where the distributor can do versus, and what are we versing it? Like, one distributor versus another. Like, okay, well, where's their service plan? Who's their service techs? How much support they're going to give you? How long is that sales rep for that distributor been your sales rep? And do you know someone beyond that sales rep? So if that sales rep's relatively new and he sells you something and he quits, do you have another phone call? Do you have another person you can call? So,
yeah, I think one of the main things that we try and do, one is, like you said, hitting all sales reps. So we have the title for our sales reps is account representatives. Is that what it is? Account. Anyways,
you make their business cards. You should know what you put on there.
I don't read them. We just send them out. But I think the goal with that is that, we are kind of coming from the perspective of, we don't like the sales rep approach to it. Like, show up, try and sell you stuff. We're really more in the relationship building business than anything, right? This isn't, when I was in sales, I would always tell people this sales role is very different, because it's not like cold calls. It's not car sales. Like, you're dealing with the same people on a regular basis, right? So you can't just go in and sell them one thing on a Monday, and then if it goes bad, oh, well, I have another customer. Like, that's a customer you're going to have all year round. So one of the things we always focus on is, one, we try and keep our sales reps as long as we can, right? Try and get good sales reps, keep them around so that they can build that relationship. So if you don't have an existing relationship with your current sales rep, or the sales rep they keep sending out is kind of in and out frequently, you're getting a new sales rep all the time, that would be something I would be a little nervous about in terms of buying. But besides that, the next question I had is, what is the role of distribution helping with the sale? Like, what should you lean on them for when you're looking to buy it?
Oh, you should lean on them for just about all the knowledge you need. So you should lean on for really what piece of equipment works for my business. I think that's the number one thing you should lean on them for. Not just what they want to sell you, I don't know how to say it correctly. Basically what works best for your shop. Like, you need to lean on them. Like, okay, they should know, like, hey, I'm putting out car wraps. Okay, well, I can't sell them a UV printer. It's that kind of stuff. Like, you should lean on us so you don't make a stupid decision. I can't think of the other things, like.
Yeah, so I think some of the things we always talk about, we just talked about, like, sales reps you can trust, right? So Steve's a good example, right, where he's been doing this a long time in Northern Grand Rapids area for us, Steve Austin, for those of you that know who he is. And he kind of has the ability with some of these customers to go in, like when a new Roland comes out, and come in and be like, yep, you should buy one. And they'll be like, okay, sounds good. And just pull the trigger, right? They don't need samples. They don't need a demo. They're like, okay, he hasn't led me astray yet, right? So I'm going to go in, I'm going to make this decision because he hasn't led me astray yet, right? So it's good. The second one I think that's important is demos, right? I think it's important to go in and see the equipment, especially if you're newer to the industry or if it's a completely different avenue for you. And your distributor should have access to those machines, right? If they don't have a demo machine in their facility, it's going to be questionable, right? Like, here we're lucky here in Grand Rapids, right? We have a lot of equipment, but across the board, we have printers and laminators at all of our locations for the most part. At least we try to, unless we have just recently sold it. But
yeah, we try to have a printer, laminator, rollover table, and a cutter at every location. So if a piece of equipment goes down that we've sold, they have an option to come in and do their jobs there.
Yeah, so one of the ways I think you should lean on them is for that, right? You should have a sales rep who you can trust to give you their opinion. The second one is you should be able to go in and see the equipment. And if you can't do either one of those two things, if you don't have a sales rep you can trust, or you can't go in and see the equipment, my question mostly is, like, how are they going to know the questions when you ask if they don't also have one and aren't dealing with it, right? If they're only dealing with third-party service, or they don't have any printers, none of their sales reps have run one, how do they, knowing the points that are on the spec sheet on how to sell the equipment is totally different from having run the printer and had issues with it and fixed them. So if they don't have the equipment, I always get a little nervous on whether or not they can actually sell it or service it when you have calls.
Yeah, and can that sales rep run that piece of equipment too? You know, like even right now we're sitting outside of a thing. Tyler has our wrap class running, and we're hoping the roll don't run out as we're talking right now, because we got it on the take-up reel running. But you know, our sales reps, or most of our sales reps, can run the equipment too. So when you're having issues, they know a little bit more than just what they read off a spec sheet.
Yeah, at least it gives you like I always refer to it as like tiers, right? Like tier 1, tier 2 kind of support issues. If you call in with a really simple issue, your goal is that whoever you get a hold of first, especially if it's a basic issue, should be able to solve your issue. And that's kind of our goal, is like, let's get it in our hands. Let's get everyone to play with it. Make sure everyone knows how to use it. So if somebody's new and they call, they have a very simple question, right? Like maybe it's loading the machine, or the feed's not quite right, or the piece on the edge of the machine that hold the media down, maybe the media clamps aren't right or something like that. That should be something your sales rep should know, right? Like, oh yeah, you just have to press this button or move this piece and then it will work fine. And sometimes I don't think they all have that experience, right? They have no idea. They're like, yeah, well, let me get a hold of a tech. And then sometimes that tech is even at that company, right? So they're going to have to call, you know, they'd have to call like Epson or something, and Epson would have to call them back, and then they would have to call you. And you're talking about a, 3-day process to get a very simple question done versus the person you first call knowing the answer, which I think is a huge help.
Yeah, we do get some very foolish. I mean, I got one just recently. It was a new customer, new printer, and they try to reach the tech department. They end up with me, and they said that every time they load the media, it falls back out of the back of the machine. And I'm like, that can't be possible. Then I thought for a second, I'm like, did you clamp it back down after you fed it through? Oh, and I'm like, they were never putting the clamp back down. Like never putting the pinch rollers down on the media. They were just like trying to print, and it was falling out of the back of the machine, obviously, because it wasn't clamped down at all. But you get questions like that, believe it or not, like, cause that's not something we go through in the training. We just kind of like assume.
Yeah. I mean, you're always going to run into issues, right? Where it might be super blatant, but just there's a lot of new information when a new printer shows up, right? So it might just be something that we're just right over your head, right? You're just so focused on like, okay, I don't want to mess this up. So you're just feeding it in, you're trying to get everything right, and then you just miss the tiniest step, which is super nice when you call a rep and then they just be like, oh yeah, you just need to do this.
It's like when you're looking all over for your phone, it's in your hand.
Yeah, you're using your phone's flashlight to look for it.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
Or you're looking for your glasses and they're on.
Yeah, they're right on your head. Yeah, exactly. So those are, I think, what our role is. The next question I have, because a lot of people will go directly to the distributor, right? So say you're interested in a Roland. So rather than reaching out to us, they'll reach out directly to Roland. So the next question would be like, why would you lean on distribution versus leaning on the manufacturer?
We talked about this. If you go to a Ford dealership, they're only going to sell you a Ford. They're not going to talk to you about Chevys. They're going to talk to you about Lexus. They're not going to talk to you about BMWs. They're only going to talk to you about Ford. So if you came in looking for, an SUV, you're going to get an Explorer, an Escape, or what's the other one? You don't even know.
Yeah.
Edge. They're not going to tell you about the other ones. So you go directly to a manufacturer, you're only looking at one brand. And sometimes that brand is not the best brand for you, and us as distributors that carry multiple brands, we'll tell you which brands we think is best for you, or we'll at least give you the options, or we'll show you both brands. Like, you're not going to go to a Ford dealership and test drive a Camaro and a Mustang and decide which one you want. Here, you're going to come here and you're going to test drive a Ford or a Camaro and decide which one you want. We're going to show you both of them.
Yeah.
So more options.
Yeah. I mean, we've been hounding on choices for the last, 4 or 5 months at this point. And I think that's one of the main things we talk about is like, we just want you to know what the choices are, right? You might come in here and we might know this printer is the most ideal printer for you, right? You don't really even need to look at any other ones, but we're going to show you those and let you at least make that decision. So here, at least we have, just in EcoSolvent alone, right? We have 3 different options that we could push people to. And in those, there's 2 or 3 other options, meaning the reality is there's probably 6 or 7 different printers you could buy. If you're like, I'm looking for a large format EcoSolvent, like, okay, we got a lot of options. So let's talk about what you're doing and figure out which best option is for you. I think we run into this often, like on, I always tell people like with the SG, like CMYK printer, right? Great piece of equipment. It looks great when it prints. And we will even come in and like lead with that. Like, I think this probably is the best printer for you. only for 6 weeks later for them to buy a VG3540, right? So you might have given them what actually is the best option, but when they looked at the options, they thought, let's get one that does a little more than what is actually the best option for me. So I think if you give people that option versus you want to Roland, so you go to Roland and they sell you and they tell you all the reasons why you shouldn't buy the other brands. And all of the reasons they gave you might be accurate, but it still would be nice to at least see them. I think you'll feel a lot better at the end of the day when a new printer shows up at your shop and you've seen the other 3 or 4 options that are out there to know like, yes, this definitely was the right choice for me versus buying one and then seeing someone else's. If you buy a Roland, you see an Epson in a shop a few weeks later and you feel bad. If you already had looked at it, you'll be like, oh yeah, I know why I didn't go with that option. And in general, I think there'll be a little less buyer's regret having seen them all versus only seeing one brand.
Yeah, and there's obviously brands we don't sell, but sometimes we'll talk about them during the sale too to tell you the differences and stuff like that. And once in a while, it doesn't happen often that what we have for you is not the right fix. We'll also know the service record of a lot of these printers, so we know the new ones that came out. We know the service record, and we will steer you clear of machines that we know that aren't ready yet, that came out too soon. And they're not ready, and we'll steer you clear of those, and we'll let you know. And there's still people that think, oh no, this is the greatest, and they buy them, and then after our 3rd or 4th visit and they try to return them, we're like, well, we told you that before you bought it.
Yeah.
Like we were very upfront that this is a problem.
Yeah.
So
that kind of leads into our next question. So I say, what are things you should look for when you're trying to buy a new product or new equipment? And one of those is who's going to service it, and what does that service look like, right? So we have our own service department here, so it's a lot easier for us to be like, okay, yeah, we've put a bunch of VG3s out in the field, and we can tell you, okay, sure, when they came out, they had this issue, but Roland addressed it, and since then, we have very few calls on it, right? Versus if you bought it from somebody else, and they either don't have a bunch of them in the field, or like in the Epson example, they're not the ones that are servicing it. The reality is we might not know the answer, right? We'll be like, well, I haven't heard anything, but the reality is we're not the point of contact for service anyways, so it's kind of hard to tell for sure. Granted, the customer probably would have told us at some point, but I think what you should look for when you're going out to buy new equipment is who's servicing it, what does that look like, what's your experience been with that so far is one of like the leading things I would start with when I'm looking at new equipment.
Yeah, and then check online. I don't know if we're getting into that too. Yeah. Check, go to Signs 101 or go to the forums and type in that printer and see what everybody's saying about it. And I suggest you do that whether you're buying it or no matter what you're buying. Do your own research too, because like I said, never trust a sales rep. Always do your own research. They'll lead you the right way, but make sure you do your own research. And then you also get into, and I think I don't know if we talked about this yet, but printers where they'll say, oh, you self-install. We have a brand here that has printers that you self-install, and we bought one that we had to install, but we wanted to do it first to see how bad it was going to be. We had 3 certified Roland techs try and do a self-install on a machine, and they ended up on the phone for an hour and a half with the dealer trying to figure out how to self-install the machine. So like, be careful of that too. Like, oh yeah, it's easy, it's self-install. Nope, they might be just trying to sell you a machine.
Yeah. And at least the other thing I would look at is if it is self-install, I think some of those probably do actually go smooth, but know that you have resources, right? So the other thing we want to talk about is like customer service, right? What does the customer service look like? And we're talking about that from 2 different directions. What does it look like from the distributor that you're buying it from? And what does it look like from the manufacturer, right? So let's go with Epson, for example, on this one. So Epson does their own service, right? They won't let anyone else service the equipment. They have a plan for that and everything. So Wensco, anyone that sells it, right? IT supplies, they don't service them at all. Nobody gets to service them. So the thing we always tell people is like, what you should look for is just pretend as if you had one, right? You can Google Epson's tech support line for their large format division, and you can call, right? Pretend like you have a printer, see what that process looks like, right? If you call and it's like, yes, you're 12 people in line, your estimated wait time is 4 hours. And I'd be like, okay, maybe this is a normal thing and maybe we should think about it. With Epson, that's not what's going to happen to you, but that's an idea I would get through is right. So like say you're going to buy something that's not from a regular distributor, so you don't have any choices there except to go direct to the manufacturer. Make sure that you can get a hold of them, because if you go down, the last thing you want to do is find out that it's a 1 to 2 week lead time to get parts or service for it. And you're just going to sit there just having all your jobs pile up because you don't have service.
Yeah. So. And listen, if this is the sales pitch, don't buy it. Hey, this is made in China. It's proven all over Europe. I just opened up in South Carolina. You'll be the first one to have one in the United States. If you buy that printer, you deserve to fail. Like, don't be the first one. Just don't be the first one. It's not. We've seen far too many people come over here and try to sell something that they said, oh, it's all over Europe. And then they sell 1, 2, 3, and then they're out of business. So if you don't make that mistake.
Yeah. I mean, we can give an example. Well, this will lead into the next question anyways, but the example that we give is we brought on a line of printers here that looked great, worked great, super well-known brand that everyone seemed to have loved when they came out, and we put a bunch of them in the field. We had a bunch of issues, couldn't get parts. We ended up sitting on, I think, 3 units here at this. This is recently, they were still here. We ended up sitting on 3 units that were DOA, basically. We never got paid from the manufacturer on it, and we were out a bunch of money. We basically ended up paying to the customers to take their machines back because they weren't working. The manufacturer didn't back us on it, so we ended up losing money on it. That's twofold there. One, make sure you have a distributor that's going to have your back regardless, right? We lost money on those deals. There's nothing.
Yeah, we bought machines back because they were bad, and then the dealer didn't support us.
Yeah, they did not give us a refund.
And that's why I don't sell that brand, nor will I ever sell that brand unless they want to maybe cut me a check for $60,000.
Yeah, which they do now. So
yeah, they asked us to resell their brand, and I sat across my table. I said, "You write me a check for $60,000, we can start talking." Until then, we're not even talking.
Yeah. So that's twofold, right? So make sure that whoever you buy it from will have your back, and then 2, make sure that whoever manufactures it is backing their product, right? So if they're relatively new, there's not a lot of experience out there on it, that's where I would kind of lean on being a little questionable on it. So when I say that, the last question I have is, what are things people should avoid when they're looking at new products or equipment? And the main one we talked about is, like you were saying, direct from China was the first part.
Yeah, avoid anything that's just short term, like, oh, it's new. If there's no history, if you search the web or you search Facebook groups or you search Signs 101 and there's nobody talking about it, avoid it. Because they're going to talk good or bad. So that's your number one clue before you buy anything, is search it. But also look for the other things you got to avoid is who you're buying it from sometimes too. Like, what's their service department? Like Tyler already said, like, even if you're buying something from us, we welcome you to call our service department to see what kind of response you would get. Or ask other customers that you might know around town. Ask them if they've ever had service on the machine, and ask what service. Like, call our service line, send in a tech, send an email that says you need tech support, and see how fast our response is. And do that to your competitors too. So the same thing. Like, if you're bidding us against, one of my competitors, call us both. Like, I'm pretty confident you call us, you're getting a response. Call our competitors too to see if they got the equal response. So that's one of the things you probably need to be very clear on, is your service, because at some point you might not need service on your machine. The machines are pretty tried and true, but you're going to need help at some point. And how fast is help? I know ours is fast. I'm not, granted there might be someone listening going, oh, well, I called and it was 40 hours and it does happen. Trust me, we miss things. I mean, I'm on every email and I do get a lot of people. I've called 4 or 5 times. Well, every tech call, I'm on the email and I'm like, well, I don't see 4 or 5. I see you called just now. Yeah. So, but anyways, yeah, check the service for sure. And, is it someone that you know? So like we talked about Steve, Steve's not going to sell you something and not back it up, because it's his reputation. He's out there. He knows he's still going to see you for the next 10 years. Yep. So buy something where someone, they're going to stand behind it because they're going to be there forever. If you've had a different rep, every 2 months, I wouldn't buy from that guy. Yeah. Because he's not going to be there in 2 months. He's not going to see him. If you've never had a sales rep walk in your building from that company, don't buy from that company, because they're not going to, they might back it, but chances are, like, there's no lost pride in it. And if there's no lost pride, then they're probably not going to stand behind it. Where Steve would lose pride. Like, he'd be all over me and the team if we didn't do something right for someone. And that's our sales staff, because they're going to be here long term. Yeah. Yeah, we're trying to keep our people as long as possible. But so when you say that, one of the things that comes to mind is, like, right now, the newest technology out there is DTF, right? Every show we go to, we see 10 new DTF printers, right? And if I look up their name, sometimes I don't even find anything, right? If I'm lucky, I find a website, right? But I won't find any socials.
I'll find nothing, right? We have no idea where this is coming from, who's making it, what the service is. And sure, it might look great and they'll all tell you the same story, right? Like, oh, it self-cleans. There's no issues at all. It's magical. You can just run this thing 24/7 and it'll never have issues. No parts. It doesn't even use ink. It's just magic. And you'll just run into that, right? At shows where they'll just give you every answer you possibly want. And you're like, we've seen this happen way too many times to know that that's not true, right? But if they're new, they don't have a whole lot of reputation to lose if they get it messed up, right? So I think that's why a lot of times, like, we're on DTF, right, where we don't have an option out there for people because we don't trust it, right? And it's our reputation on the line when we bring it on. So rather than bring on one and hope that it works, we're kind of sitting and waiting like, okay, let's make sure somebody that we trust brings one on. And then from there, we can try and sell that unit versus bring one on and potentially have issues or potentially lose reputation on it. So if you have somebody who's bringing on, the latest and greatest equipment all the time, and then they bring it on, they discontinue it, bring it on, discontinue it, I'd be a little nervous every time I bought something from them.
Yeah, I would rather lose those sales than sell something crappy. And that's why we're just sitting waiting. We're waiting to see who's going to come out of this cloud ahead, and then we'll go after it from there. But as of right now, every show we see different machines, show after show after show after show, and then we see different people with the same machine, then different machines with the same people. Like it's not a market we're ready to jump in and say, hey, we should get this machine yet. And trust me, we look at him. Domingo's the biggest head up. He thinks it's the future, and we're going to put that sign in his office too. Like, I almost stole a sign from a show that says
DTF is the future.
DTF is the future. I'm like, we got to put that in Domingo's office. But like, we're being patient because we don't want to bring something on, then have to discontinue it, and you're stuck with the machine. So we won't do it until we're comfortable.
Yeah. So I think that all of the things we just said, for the most part, go equally towards regular products, right? Not even equipment. So an example for this is, right, we have a lot of people here that know a lot about different products. So let's say like wrap material, for example, right? So when we see a new product or we see one at the show, we can literally just put hands on it and probably know within a couple minutes if this is going to be anything worthwhile. You're not going to know longevity and all that kind of stuff, but at least to start, you're going to be like, okay, yeah, this is decent, right? If you don't have reps that are knowledgeable, or you don't have anyone at that company that's knowledgeable, when they bring out a new product, you're going to have no way to know if it's good or not, right? You're just going to take the vendor's word for it and be like, yep, this product's awesome. It's going to work every time. And then they get it in their hands and like, this is terrible. Why did you ever even attempt to sell this to me?
Yeah, I think when Tony Walkins, our sales manager, when he first started, him and I used to go to everything together. We went and we'd go to the shows together, and I would show him all the tricks that people use, because that was back when edge-lit LED was real big, and they'd light it from the bottom, and I'd be like, see how the print's dark on the bottom? And then it would be light at the top, and like, oh, look how beautiful it is. The reality was, if it's dark on the bottom, because the LEDs weren't at the time yet, you would be able to see the LEDs if you didn't have the dark print on the bottom. I'm like, that's a trick. And then we'd go to the next one, like, oh, it's a trick. So they can trick you. And same thing, you can have someone that's been used to doing that wrap vinyl forever. Like they're doing the same demo over and over and over. And that's why we brought in the blindfolded wrap. It's because at our open houses, I wrap the same hood 300 times. I can do it blindfolded. But, you can fudge any demo, and you can fudge any lights if you're in the right environment. It goes with LEDs too. Like, I don't know how many people have brought in boxes to show us, and I'm like, let me see the box. And half the box is painted with reflective, half is painted with regular white, or there's diffuser film on one side and not on the other. Like, if you don't know what you're talking about, they can confuse you. So we do have experts in just about every part, because we don't, number one reason, again, because I don't trust sales reps, and I'm going to check every little thing that they do.
Yeah, I think we see it like equipment and vinyl, kind of the same thing. Everyone will use the same specs, right? The joke I was running at ISA was like, wow, I've seen 4 new vinyls at the show that are all the exact same specs, right? They're all 2 mil vinyls, 1.4 mil laminates. There's 4 of them here at the show. Isn't that weird? They're all the same warranty. They're all the same. They all feel very similar. How does that work, right? And they're all different, right? They're all like, oh no, this is very different than the other stuff. It's hard to know what's true and what's not true. Our producer's making a mess.
Our producer just spilled his drink on my floor.
Yes, we might have lost some water.
It's unreal. Anyways.
That's hilarious.
So that vinyl you're talking about, like, we kind of laughed about same specs, feel same. And one of the vendors was dumb enough. We turn it over, we look at the backer. The backer says where they're making it from. Like, so, okay, we know all of you are getting it from this vendor because it's all the same specs, all the same thing, and one of them...
And one of you messed up. Yeah.
Messed up.
And got the wrong.
So we figured it all out.
Actually, it's probably the manufacturer messed it up.
Yeah, the manufacturer messed it up, but you still got to look at it. I mean, that's happened on our private label stuff too, where all of a sudden someone says, hey, well, I got this brand. I'm like...
And it showed up in a box with with
an elf. Yeah, it's just, it happens. Or they ship it all together and someone looked at the skid before us. Like, we've had that happen here. Yep. When Fellers was still in town. You know, they shipped our skid and their skid's right behind it, and it has branded product with their private label on it.
Coming from the same warehouse, yeah.
Coming from the same warehouse. Oh, I wonder where they get their cut vinyl from.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we know.
Yeah, because they shipped it all in one shipment. Yeah, so... that's kind of what we're talking about. It's kind of just, you want to have somebody you can trust so you know kind of like what's actually new and good versus what's just new and not all that valuable. I think something people should know too is that we see a lot of new products on a regular basis, right? Probably once a week, we probably talk to somebody that's like, oh, you guys should bring this on. And we have a lot of products already, and there's still a lot of stuff that we do not bring on, even from our existing vendors, right? We'll just be like, I don't think there's a market for it, right? Like if you drive demand and we get a bunch of people asking about it, sure, we'll bring it on. But we've seen it, we see what else we have to offer, and we've just decided, no, this isn't for us. So you should just know, like when you see it on our website, even though there's a lot, right? So you still might have 12 options for the one thing you're looking for. You should know that you could have had 25 options, and we've weeded it out intentionally, knowing that we don't want to put something on here that you might end up buying and it might be a terrible product. So we'll just kind of, when somebody brings us something, we're going to actually, vet it and make sure it's right, even if it's from a trusted vendor already.
Yeah. If you guys could see, it's Domingo's our product manager. If you saw his office, it's just loaded down with stuff. And we do test a lot. He puts a lot on the walls. We tried to do underwater vinyl. And so we will test that stuff. I'm still looking for someone so I could test some underwater LEDs for my fish pond. I know who makes one, but does anybody else make any?
Yeah, exactly.
So
let's just wrap this up. The top things that you should look for kind of when you're trying to bring out a new product. The first one is one of the main ones we talked about. Do you know where you're buying it from or who's going to support it when you get it?
Yeah, I think that's the number one for sure, because we've been around since 1937. We're not going anywhere, and we know what we're doing. We've been here before, and if you get Joe Blow down the street that works out of the barn, does he know about his products? Is he still going to be there next month? Is the barn going to withstand, the next windstorm? So yeah, you should know us. You should know all of us. You should know us in a little bit of depth too. You shouldn't just know, just Steve. Who do you call and talk to? Do you call and talk to Allie or Desmond or Haley or somebody like that? And then also you have direct access to me if you need to, like if you need to go around, like I'm very accessible when it comes to like, hey, can I talk to somebody else? And Tony Watkins is in between us, so sometimes I get him, but we had someone call just last week, hey, I need to talk to basically top guy right away. Within 30 seconds, I'm on the phone with them. Like, I'm not afraid to talk on the phone. I'm available. I'm accessible. So that's a little bit too, is there a next tier that's accessible to you?
Yeah. I mean, we just went through, Rick was part of that project too, and Bonnie, of putting up our staff on the website, right? Like, who are we, right? Because we found that's important. We get a lot of people asking like, hey, I want to talk to, the next person is basically what they're telling us, and they don't have any idea who it is. And we're like, okay, that's an error on our end, right? Like you should know who you're talking to, right? Like, who's the management here? Whose job is it for this? Whose job is it for that? And sure, with that comes a lot of spam mail now because of the way we have that set up. But it also gives the customers a benefit of being like, look, there's depth here, right? It's not just one person, right? You're talking with the sales rep, there's 3 other people in that next line that you probably can talk to if something was to go wrong. So that's kind of why we say, number one, who are you buying from? And we mean that both from distribution and the manufacturer, like we talked about. Just vet your manufacturers, make sure that they have a service department if the distributor isn't doing it, and make sure that if you need to get a hold of somebody, you can. So that's number one. Number two, just talking about equipment on this one. How's it serviced, from where, and timelines, basically.
Yeah, we talked about it. Make the call. Call, pretend like you have the equipment, see what your response is. See if it's a long response, short response. If it's a correct response, I can tell you a lot of people that have our equipment, people are probably listening right now, they have a lot of our tech cell numbers. As much as I don't like our techs giving out cell numbers, I'm against it, because then if you're on vacation, they keep trying to call you. A lot of our techs have our cell numbers, and our techs will call you after hours. Like, I don't recommend it. I don't want you to call our techs after hours, but we have techs that care. And if that company doesn't have techs that actually care, that want to keep your stuff running, like, they take pride in all of our equipment running. And if you call and they say, hey, we'll respond within 48 hours, oh, we got to fly somebody out, don't buy it, because there's a dealer in your area that has techs on site somewhere, whether you're listening here or California or wherever. There is going to be a dealer that can service it from their local rep branch.
Most of the reputable brands out there talking about equipment require that the dealers be able to service it within a certain window, right? So whether or not they uphold that or not. So Muto and Roland are two that we carry here, right, that you can service, and you have to be able to service them to sell them, right? So I think Muto has a little more loose rules in terms of people being able to fly out to them, but Roland's very specific about that. So if you're looking to buy from somebody and they're not nearby to you or they can't service it, I would look and see if there's another distributor that's closer and try and visit them or get out and see the equipment and make sure that they have people that can come out and service it. So I think that's important. The last one, top things to look for when you're buying it, is just public opinion. There's a lot of people with opinions out there. Signs 101, the forums, and then all the Facebook groups are out there. They all have search functions. You can go in, type in whatever you're looking to buy, right? So type in VG3 on those damn sign guys, hit enter, see what everyone has to say. And I'll tell you that now because I know, I'm sure there's some people that are mad out there, but for the most part, you're going to hear people that are saying like, hey, we're looking at this. What does people think? And you'll probably see a lot of good things about that printer. So
yeah, you're always going to weed out the bad, but there is a lot of good. And I would say that bit of advice that we just gave is true to anything that you're buying. Literally, I mean, not dollar store items, but like anything that you're buying, just do some research. If there's a couple different brands, just do your research. And whether it's equipment, vinyl, anything company related, but anything personal related, you're looking for a new pool float. Like, okay, well, this is the one I'm looking at. Research it. No, it rips within the first week, and there's like 95 of them that ripped within the first week. Well, I know I'm going to rip it in the first day because we're a little rough on equipment. So yeah, that's good advice across the board. Just research it. The internet's so easy to research. So, and you can find Facebook groups for literally everything, pools and diseases and equipment, all that stuff, cars. So just do your research.
Yeah, there's a few good Facebook groups out there. Like I said, Those Damn Sign Guys was the first one I mentioned. Sign Shop Talk is another one. There's a lot of people in there, right? So if you have questions, if you're doing wraps, Rap Fam, I think, is the other one that's out there. It's a pretty big rap Facebook group. You can go in there and ask any type of question, right? So I tell you that because we just came back from a show where a guy said he had never seen us before. He's in Texas and he sees us at the show and he goes like, hey, you guys, we don't really buy anything from you guys now. He said, but all I can say is that I see your name show up in the Facebook groups a lot with a lot of nice things to say about you guys. So I just want to say like, hey, keep up the good work. So when I say that, you can do that for any distributor, right? You could just go in and type in Wensco Sign Supply or Wensco and see what people have to say about us. And as somebody who is regularly in those Facebook groups, they don't really have a lot of bad things to say about us. Do that for your other distributors. Do that for your equipment. Do that for your supplies, right? Even down to vinyl, right? Say IJ180, see what people have to say about it, right? Before you go out and buy, a skid quantity of it or something like that. You can always double check it or see what people recommend. And we would love to be a resource for that. If you're looking for something, come ask us. We'll give you our recommendations and then double check our work from there, right? So if we say, yeah, we're doing the side of a van, we're not doing anything complicated, and we're like, yeah, let's use Arlon 4600 GLX would be a good option. Double check our work. Go into the Facebook group, say, hey, anyone done the side of a van and Arlon 4600 GLX, and see what people say. And as long as we do our job right, it should work fine on both sides. So that's kind of what we recommend.
Yeah, I don't think you get a lot of distributors, a lot of salespeople in general that say, hey, double check me.
Yeah.
Like, this is how confident we are that we've been trained right and that we've listened to other customers. And we actually, we read a lot of those groups too. You and I both do, and so does a lot of our staff. Like, we're double checking ourselves also. Are we doing the right things? And as we start looking at other vinyls too, we do the same thing. We go into the is anyone using this? And it's just crickets. You're like, then no. The answer is no.
When the distributor says like, yeah, we're moving a bunch of it, and then you go to find it and you can't find anybody talking about it.
That's the sales pitch every time. Oh, we're selling this everywhere across the nation. Just, you would just complete us and blah, blah, blah. And then you go research it and nothing.
Yeah, you can't find anyone talking about it. Like, oh, maybe not true.
Yeah.
So those are kind of our tips. If you're feeling overwhelmed with all the new stuff that's out there, vinyl, equipment, everything, we'd love to help if there's any way we can. Just reach out to your sales rep. If you don't know who it is, just reach out to Wensco through our customer service line. They'll get you in touch with somebody that hopefully can answer your question. That's our goal.
Even if you're not in our area and you don't know like your local sign, distributor, you can call us and we'll put you in the right direction. We pretty much know everybody across the nation, and we'll get you in the right direction with the right equipment and push you there. Because there's limits on where you can sell roll-ins and stuff like that, but. We obviously wouldn't sell you, like, even if we could sell you something, we ain't going to sell someone in Oregon a machine that we have to go out and install. We're not flying out there to install. We're going to give you a name of who's out there that can install it.
Yeah, like I just said, I came back from a show. I was at the Sign World show, which was in Dallas, and I had a customer come up to me who's in Dallas, and they were like, oh, like, what can you guys do for us? And I said, for you, if I'm being completely honest with you, probably nothing. And I said, I don't say that to be mean or I wouldn't want to sell you something, but you have 3 other distributors within 5 miles of your shop. So could I ship you stuff in? Sure. But would they service you better than I would? 100%. Right? If all 3 of them are doing something poorly for you, sure, reach out, we'll help. But what are the odds all 3 of them are bad, right? If you're in an area where there's only one other option right now, sure, we'd love to be the second option. We can ship it in. But if you already have 3 and at least 2 of them I know are decent in your area, I'm not going to try and compete with that. It doesn't make any sense. So that's kind of where we're at. You might be surprised that we would get you in touch with even the rep that's in that territory for the other company. We know a lot of people in this industry. We've been around a little while, talked to a lot of people at shows. So we could probably get you in touch with the right person if it isn't us, even if you're not in our territory. So reach out. They'll get you in touch with one of us too, or somebody else here at Wensco that can help you, point you in the right direction. So
yeah, I think that pretty much wraps it up, right?
Yeah. So once again, guys, thanks for watching. For all of you that have been watching on YouTube, we appreciate it. We're going up real steadily on YouTube.
Yeah, keep watching on YouTube. We're so close to collecting money from a couple of. Well, as long as they keep running ads on our YouTube, Sign Outlet, keep doing it, buddy.
Yep.
You're gonna be paying us soon. That's awesome.
Eventually, we'll get paid by our competitors.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it.
It'll be awesome. It'll be great. So
that should be by the next time, right? By the time we do this one.
No, we're probably based on our current trajectory, probably like another 6 episodes or so out would be my guess, roughly. I just looked at the numbers.
Okay, can we share this one? Can you guys all share this episode right here, just so we can get there faster?
Or better yet, just go to Wensco Sign Supply on YouTube, go to the playlist button, go to the podcast, and then just click play all. You can mute it. I literally don't care, and just watch the whole thing.
That's cheating.
Yeah, I don't care.
You can set it when you go to sleep.
Yeah, you could. You just listen. You can listen to our beautiful voices to help you go to sleep.
Everybody has a grandma that's bored.
Yes, send it over.
Send it to her and let her watch the whole thing.
I know you guys get the questions because I get the same thing. Oh, what do you do for a living? And you're like, yeah, we're in the sign business. Oh, so you guys like do this, and then you got to explain it to them. Just send them this. Just be like, okay, here's an idea of what I do. We're probably pretty accurate representation, so at least we try. Especially after the last one. If somebody asks, what do you do for a living? Why do I always come home with cuts and stuff on my hand? Send them the last Mother's Day episode. It'll make more sense to everybody involved. So,
for sure. Well, actually, Jaime was in here. He's our HR department, and we hired a new person. When I shook her hand, she said, "My hands are soft." I'm like, "My hands are full of cuts, but like I must have
a
little extra lotion on my hands."
Yeah, you got it all taken care of. So,
but yeah, my hands are full of cuts from loading stuff for these guys.
Yeah. So, like I said, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We appreciate you guys, and we'll see you in the next episode. So thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.